It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. From Fantha Tracks TV, this is Good Morning Tatooine!
Good morning, Tatooine, indeed. I can't even say Tatooine this week. We're back with your weekly recap of everything Star Wars. I'm your host, Brian Cameron. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. Paul Naylor. How are you, Paul?
Hello, Brian. I'm good, mate. It's Tatooine.
Tatooine. I've just got Good Morning Coruscant stuck in my head now, ever since I've watched Andor. They stole our entire concept and they've ruined it for me.
Well, maybe one day we will honour them.
We should. We really should. It's been a busy week. You've been at the Andmore event in Fordingbridge here in the UK.
Yeah, it was really, really good. Great behind the scenes delve into Andor seasons 1 and 2. Some brilliant people there that have worked on the film and the TV series, rather. I mean, you're familiar with Fordingbridge, Brian. We've been to many events there, courtesy of Dave Tree. Brilliant people there that have worked on the film.
Hello. No, that was me, sorry. I'm playing about with my phone. I shouldn't be. I was checking our transmission to Instagram was working and it sent the sound to my computer.
Never let it be said we're not professional. But yeah, it was a brilliant event. Hiya, Jack. I think it's probably the best thing I've seen down at Fordingbridge. Really, really good.
Fantastic. It is a difficult place to get to, but it's well worth heading there. The New Forest, beautiful part of the UK.
It is just a devil to get to, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's why it's so nice. Nobody goes there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're transmitting again to Instagram this week. Hopefully, you can all enjoy the show across there as well. And fingers crossed it works this week. We had a few technical issues as we're trying to add Instagram to one of our platforms that we go live to every week. And of course, you can drop your comments on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, Twitch, wherever you're watching. We'll pick up those comments and we'll try and include as many of your thoughts in the show as possible. Want your opinions on all the news that we're going to be talking about. And Adam O'Brien, all the way from Australia there as well, on YouTube. We've got lots to speak about this week. So we see what's coming up on the show?
Yeah, sure.
So first up, Star Wars Starfighter, the casting news is starting to drop, and news that Mia Goth is going to be featuring in the film alongside Ryan Gosling.
And I see now you have to pronounce it Mia Goth, because then I can turn and say, "Oh, Mia, heavy rocker." But there you go. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, whip, belt, and holster heading to Propstore auction.
We'll also be covering the Revenge of the Sith 20th anniversary vinyl soundtrack re-release.
Then it's over to PaleyLive, an evening with Andor. That sounds interesting.
Continuing the Andor theme, we'll be hearing from Brandon Roberts on what he felt like on scoring season 2.
And then Star Wars Skeleton Crew, Image Engine VFX breakdown reel. I've not seen that. I take it it's available now, but I've not seen it.
We'll be checking that out. Sideshow Collectibles have announced a Cassian Andor 6-scale figure from Hot Toys.
Yeah, that looks really nice. And again, back to Andor, writer Tom Bissell on Dedra and Krennic. It's a riveting scene. I take it that's
the famous bop in the head scene. And we'll also be having an episode of Jabba's Court slammed in the middle of the show, where we'll be talking about Dave Filoni and Carrie Beck potentially taking over as the co-hosts, or the co-presidents rather, of Lucasfilm, and ending the show with a recap of Andor Season 2, Episode 2. Impatient Potato saying there's a bit of an echo going on over on Instagram, so we'll check that out after the show and we'll get on top of that. Tech issues. If you want to jump over to YouTube at Fantha Tracks TV on YouTube is the best place I think to watch at the moment. Hopefully it's transmitting perfectly okay there. Paul, should we crack on straight away with the news? And the exciting news it is that casting for Starfighter is deep underway.
Yeah. Now, I wasn't familiar with this young lady at all, Mia Goth. Never heard of her.
I knew her from the horror trilogy X,
Right.
where she was one of the central characters across the trilogy. Horror's not my thing, really.
No.
But she was very convincing as an evil character in that, and by all accounts, she's going to be playing the opponent to Ryan Gosling's character in that film.
Let's hope that we get something other than a Sith.
And the story goes that she's playing the same role that Mikey Madison was originally rumoured to be negotiating for, but the negotiations for that has fallen through.
Right. Okay. But it would be nice to have somebody that's not necessarily a good person, but isn't a Sith for a change. We have too many of those now, I think.
That's true. That's very true indeed. Interesting news. We're starting to get casting. The production is supposed to begin this autumn. It's moving very quick, this project.
Yeah. I mean, they've got to nail this one, haven't they? This is going to be the 50th anniversary of the original film when this comes out. Within 3 days of its 50th anniversary. So this has got to be good. This has got to be something that we can look back on and say, yeah, that was the right film to celebrate 50 years of Star Wars with. So I've got high hopes for it.
Yeah. It's going to be something fresh and new, hopefully. So we don't know, when we talk about the opposite kind of opponent to his character, what that kind of means in terms of, is she going to be, for example, a starfighter on the opposite side herself, or is she going to be playing something more sinister, more evil, more Sith-like? Don't have any of that details at this point in time.
It could be somebody tactical. It could be like a Krennic or a Tarkin type of character. It could be something like that.
Definitely.
That would be good. But yeah, we're going to get loads of bits of information drip-fed to us over the coming months. So yeah, it's a promising start.
Definitely. Next up in the news front, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Back in the news because the bullwhip, whip holster and belt belonging to Harrison Ford's character in that film is going to go up to auction with Propstore. An estimate of anywhere between $250,000 to $500 US. You going to be making a bid, Paul?
That's not going to be in my sort of ballpark. Definitely not. That's going to be a very specialist collector that buys that. Would be good. Would be good to see it go to a fan. I mean, obviously we're familiar with collectors such as Gus. Is Gus an Indiana Jones collector, or is he purely Star Wars?
It's one that's been in a private collection for many decades. So this is the first time it's actually coming up for auction, which is why they've got such a wide estimate. I think nobody quite knows where it might go price-wise.
That thing belongs in a museum.
Definitely. Interesting one to watch. We'll come back to that news story, I'm sure, when it sells and find out what price it does go for.
Yeah.
Something more affordable for all of us. Revenge of the Sith coming out on the final for its 20th anniversary. One of my favourite soundtracks, and pre-orders have already started. Paul, is it something that you'd like to get your hands on?
Do you know, I mean, I'm quite into my music, but I've never been one of these people that's had this renaissance with vinyl. I love it, don't get me wrong. I've just never got around to buying a new deck. Sold a load of my old vinyl collection off years ago. So I think probably what's stopping me from buying a new kit is that I would never want to buy all the LPs that I since got rid of. So yeah, but if I did have one, this would be certainly on the list. There's nothing more tangible than having the actual physical release rather than listening to stuff on digital. So yeah. I mean, if I'd got the kit, I'd want that. Now, people don't always need the kit to buy the records. I mean, Mark Newbold's forever buying laser discs, and I don't think he's got a working laser disc player. So why not buy the vinyl LP? You can always stick it on the wall, frame it.
Definitely. And brings us to our fourth news article of the evening, and an evening with Andor. PaleyLive once again bringing a major panel focused on Andor, the Disney Plus sci-fi series that we've all been loving and enjoying. We can watch a little clip from that.
Now, Diego and Adria, you guys' relationship over the course of this show was, again, this is a science fiction space adventure, and my heart was breaking for you guys. The stuff that you guys were put through. I mean, how did you? Especially, this was really amazing to me. One of the hardest things that I thought that your character goes through is not just the torture and the trauma that she suffers. It's then being put in that crappy apartment where she has nothing to do, and she is going insane, and you feel just as protective of her stuck in that apartment. Like she's going to do something drastic. This is not good. And it's interesting how Cassian kind of starts butting heads with Luthen. Like you're using like there was so much going on there. How did you? How? All of it. Amazing.
Hi everyone. I also see a fellow Bix right there in the corner. I know you. I mean, it was honestly all on the page, and it's beautiful that we got to explore this relationship in second season. You know, after you create a whole season with someone like Diego, you become friends, and all of a sudden you feel so comfortable, and he's probably one of the most generous actors I have ever worked with. Not only is he an actor, but he's also one of our producers, and he's the lead of our show. So to be able to act right in front of the source sort of material was really helpful, and I trust him. And I think sometimes those relationships that are so captivating, they kind of stem from trust, and I trust this dude blindly. I really do. And with Bix, I love the way that Tony wrote the season for Bix so much, because he really showcases that trauma isn't solved in one episode.
No.
And
or maybe never at all. Like, okay, I'm going to need to live with this. How do I live with this?
Yeah, and she's resilient when it comes to it. You know, she's going through so much. And, you know, I've heard sort of the word victim here and there, and I actually really like to negate that, because she's so strong. She's going through something so tough, and yet she stands up every day, and she tries, and she's trying so much she can't sleep, and then she's like, maybe I'll take some sleep droppers, and maybe that'll help me, and she tries, and it becomes this spiral. And all she wants to do is be part of the rebellion. And that scene with Luthen breaks my heart every time when he walks in, and she's like, this could be my moment, and she realizes this is what I look like, this is the apartment. I lost that shot, that opportunity. I love this season. I love this season and this arc so much.
It's not a crappy apartment.
No.
I mean, come on. Till I was 30, I lived in a smaller apartment, and I was working my ass off. So no. Let's. I mean, you have Cassian cooking for you every night.
Crappy apartment or not, Paul?
I don't know if that was just me. That was very echoey, but I did get the gist of it. Yeah, I don't think it's got a crappy apartment. It was, yeah, it's all very cool. That's been the interesting thing about Andor. We delved into sort of people's day-to-day lives, sort of, almost the mundane, but it's interesting because we're getting to see sort of like things that we've never really seen before, other than Armoru chopping up a few vegetables in a food processor. But you know, it's just good to see it. So yeah, that's what I've always liked about Andor, the minutiae, the little details, really cool.
Definitely. Should we head over to Jabba's court and have a debate on this week's big burning topic?
Oh yes.
So this week's big burning topic, on the back of a report from the Hollywood Reporter, that Dave Filoni and Carrie Beck are going to co-lead Lucasfilm upon Kathleen Kennedy's upcoming departure as president. Paul, do you think that's the right move for Lucasfilm, first of all?
Yeah, so look, while we were travelling down to the New Forest yesterday, we were talking about this. There was myself, Mark Newbold, and Jonathan Hipkiss, all members of Phantom Tracks. And we were talking about the displacement, shall we say, of Kathleen Kennedy, because she won't be leaving the actual bit. Just step down from that role, as far as we're aware. So it would be good to see that whoever took on the role was given the space to do it the way that they want to do it. Now, if it is Dave and Kathy, then great. You know, there's something you said for two people doing it. As long as Kathleen does it, then yeah, that can have a moment in the spotlight. More familiar with Dave than Carrie, and confident that Dave will do a good job. Do you know much about Carrie at all?
I don't know. You know, her career for Lucasfilm, I think, was for films for MTV primarily. So most of her work that I'm familiar with really is what she's worked on at Lucasfilm. Part of me thinks that THR are just looking at this and thinking who's the most likely if they are to appoint internally.
Yeah.
But I think if you're going down the line of co-leads, and I do kind of think that's the direction they may go, because you know they may split the job of president away from creative in effect. You would actually team Dave Filoni and Carrie Beck up on the creative side of things, and you would have someone more business-like. And they have very many business-like people within Lucasfilm already who would make more sense to take on the role of president. So this isn't one that I see as happening.
Oh, right. Okay. No, I take your point on that. I mean, yes, you do need somebody that's got the business acumen rather than the creative acumen, I suppose. But have you got any thoughts on who it could be?
I kind of do, but if it was me, I wouldn't appoint from inside. I would take someone from outside. And this is very unpopular, I think, in businesses at the moment. Every business wants to
Develop its own talent.
Appoint from within. And I would actually take someone from outside. I think Lucasfilm needs that more than anything. I think there's a lot of areas that Lucasfilm has failed on in the past decade. And I think that's because it's so insular as a company that it actually needs more people from the outside. And there's been, obviously, you've had to build up a production company from scratch, basically. Kathleen Kenny, since she's taken over. So all the appointments are her appointments.
Yes.
And when you appoint someone, it's then very difficult for you to have them as your opponent in thought. So actually bringing someone from the outside who isn't buddy with everybody and hasn't appointed them and they aren't their people is probably more healthy, I think.
probably more healthy from a business point of view, but from the people that are working there, that could be quite unsettling.
Yes.
Because the person that comes in has got no emotional or work connection to anybody at all. So, as far as they're concerned, it doesn't matter whether you've worked there 6 months or 50 years, you're new to them, and they will make a judgment on you and decide your fate, regardless of your history.
Yeah. I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing, though.
Yeah, but that's why you support the Empire and I
Yeah.
support the Republic.
Definitely. It's a strange one. I think we should be less concerned with who the next lead of Lucasfilm is. We should be more concerned with who the next, creative project's coming from. I think there's too much thought pattern goes into who the presidents of companies are. Should we really care? It should be about the end product that's coming out, and that's why I kind of hope that it's an appointment where we all go who. On the basis of, you're employing someone else and to run the business side of things. They don't need to be involved in the creative side of things.
It doesn't need to be somebody that is, very recognizable to us and constantly in the spotlight. They need to be able to sit back, do what they've got to do, and just, be anonymous, really.
Definitely. It's a difficult one. I think Lucasfilm are in a difficult position. Disney are in a difficult position. I kind of feel that, they tried to replace Bob Iger and it kind of failed spectacularly on them. And Bob never really left. He was always kind of hanging there in the background. And you've got this kind of problem with Lucasfilm as well, in that Kathleen Kennedy's already committed to remaining as producer on a number of projects. So if the timeline goes as people are referring to it going, and she leaves at some point this year, she's going to remain on as producer for The Mandalorian and Grogu, which releases next spring, so it's not such a big deal. But also for the Starfighter film. That's a little bit problematic in my eyes, because if the person you're replacing hasn't really stepped away.
Well, yeah, that's what I was hinting at. Yeah. There's always this danger of, if they're still working within the organization, that there's going to be that sort of somebody to lean back on. That really they should be out of the frame altogether. But if she's still around, it can cause problems.
Yeah. John Scott Clever making a point on Instagram: leave Dave to do the creating, Carrie to run the business. That's the kind of split I think would be right. But for me, Carrie Beck is so involved in the production side of things, that almost feels difficult.
Yeah, maybe that's what they're going to do. Maybe that they're just going to see that the head of creative, which we hope will be Dave, the head of creative is as important as the other role, so that
Quite possibly.
come on a level playing field.
Quite possibly. It's one we're going to have to stay and watch and see what happens, I think, Paul.
It's not going to be red corner, blue corner kind of stuff, is it?
It is, yeah, definitely. With that in mind, Jabba's Court's part of Good Morning Tatooine, your weekly recap of all the latest Star Wars news, live streaming every Sunday at 9 p.m. in the UK, 4 p.m. in New York, and releases its own video every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Back to Good Morning Tatooine and the coverage of this week's news, Paul.
Yeah, what we got next?
Jack asking an interesting question there. Why not bring George Lucas back as the creative director? Probably because George wouldn't want it. As I think he's...
Isn't he in his 80s now?
Yeah, and he's kind of indicated that once he steps away, he had to completely step away. It's like a divorce. Don't phone the ex-wife kind of deal. I don't think he'd want it at all. I don't think he would want to be in a situation where he's taking orders from someone else. No. If George came up with an idea that he thought was great and it goes to the Disney board for finance for the project and they said no, would George be a happy man?
He did go to a screening of The Empire Strikes Back the other week, though, didn't he?
He did, but it wasn't a Disney-operated event.
Oh no, he went because he loves the film.
Yeah, probably.
Quite right.
But yeah, no, he definitely won't come back. It's a weird one. I don't know where you go forward in terms of creative. Everything's in Dave Filoni's shoulders. It feels like a little bit. Where I prefer a model where you've got a business person as president that nobody really knows or speaks about, and you have different creative come in for each project. And maybe you've got someone in the background pulling the strings as to what direction are we going and what type of projects do we want to be doing. But
I think
the way
it
plays out at the moment, so much is just placed on Dave Filoni's shoulders.
Yeah, the thing that we need more than anything at the moment, in terms of all things Star Wars, is for none of this, and it's happened too often in the last few years, none of this stuff where they announce projects that then don't come to anything, or that they announce a director that suddenly they're off the project. They announce a writer, they're off the project. We need to get to a situation where they don't overpromise too soon. That we wait until everything's actually properly in production, everything's settled in. It might even be that it's close to being finished. Announce it now. But what we can't avoid, you know, I think within certain elements of the fandom, it's kind of become a bit of a laughing stock the last few years. And that's more than anything is what needs ironing out. We need to know that what's coming up is definitely going to happen. Definitely going to be these people are going to be in it. Because at the moment, we often hear talk about the Ryan Johnson trilogy. Will that ever happen? I hope not. There's all sorts of different things that are mentioned that have since fallen by the wayside or may not exist. It could even be 5-6 years down the line. Well, that helps no one.
Yep. Definitely. Next on the news front, back to Andor. And Brandon Roberts has been talking about scoring season 2. He came in after Nicholas Brittle had to step away. Nicholas Brittle obviously did some of the episodes before having to leave. And he's come in, he's taken on the role, he's been given a huge task by Tony Gilroy. And you know, he's talked about it being a dream come true for him. Just a side note, I know Big Kev and a few other people are talking about there's still an echo coming from Paul. Nothing we can do while we're live. So if you can't live with it, you know, catch the show after the live's over, is all I can say at this point in time. But yeah, Brandon Roberts on scoring at season 2. I'd have to be honest, beyond sort of the Gorman song, I didn't really notice too much the soundtrack for Andor season 2. And I don't mean that as a negative. Sometimes that's quite a positive.
Yeah. It certainly wasn't disruptive. Yeah, I think it's good to see different people coming in because obviously John Williams, the legend that he is. You can't expect somebody that's in their 90s to carry on forever. So to see different people coming in and bringing the score is great. Thank you very much, Jack. Extra echo there. But yeah, I mean, you know, we've got to evolve. We've got to start using different people to do the soundtrack. And like you said, Brian, I can't really say that I noticed any major changes from season 1 and season 2. Whatever the score was behind the action certainly didn't interrupt the flow of things. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. But yeah, I've actually downloaded his soundtrack from YouTube where it's been uploaded by himself. So I'm going to be checking it out, and then I'm going to go back and watch the series at some point over the summer and sort of be a little bit more aware of the soundtrack afterwards. But yeah, it's an interesting one that it kind of works so well that it didn't. There wasn't a moment where I thought it jumped out at me. So I kind of think I'm going to enjoy it quite a bit just listening to it back.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. Next up, Imagine Engine have released a VFX breakdown reel for Skeleton Crew, which we can check out because it's pretty impressive. Pretty incredible stuff. You kind of forget the levels and the depth of this kind of tech.
Yeah, just thinking it makes me want to go and watch Skeleton Crew again. Yeah.
I think it is. Skeleton Crew is one of those watchable programs, I think, where, you know, it's maybe not exciting in terms of, is there something huge and dramatic happens? No. But it's very much just nice, casual, watchable TV.
It's like a holiday film. It's like
it is
like
definitely. It was definitely the right window time release to release it around about Christmas. Definitely that kind of show.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I'll wait a few months. I'll put it on again.
Yep. If you've got some money to burn, Paul, Hot Toys are back once again with another figure. This time, Cassian Andor, coming in at just under £300. Is going to ship September of next year. Big fan of Hot Toy stuff. I'm not sure I'm overly enamoured with this one.
Really? I think it's brilliant. Yeah, no, I really, really like that one. Yeah, good likeness. Maybe slightly cartoony, but it is a good likeness.
I don't know if is it. I'm not a fan of it because it's like a pose, a Cassian that it doesn't have much in the sense of meaning, I think.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, it's probably because it's not an Imperial. That's probably what your problem is.
Quite possibly.
But no, I think it's. I think if you put that amongst a collection of various other in the range, I think it would hold up quite well. They're just so expensive, aren't they? You know.
I'm going to pass on it. I'm going to pass on it this week.
Get some comics.
Definitely. Talking of Imperials, we haven't reached this one in our big recap yet, but during Andor Season 2, there is an epic scene between Dedra and Krennic that has become something of a meme online due to the little bop in the head. And interestingly, in verse, we're talking with the writer of the episode, Tom Bissell, this past week. And and they asked an interesting question about something. Tell us something about something that you wrote that the actors came back with an interpretation that you hadn't anticipated. And Tom Bissell brings up this scene primarily because Ben Mendelsohn introduced a little bop with the finger on the top of the head himself. It wasn't something that was in the original script, and he added that. And Tom goes to great lengths to talk about why it was such a difficult scene to write, because they were trying to bring in so much information in a short period of time that they thought that it could end up boring the audience, but that the work of the director and the way that he framed it and the work of the two actors and the way that they performed it really made it work.
Yeah, I mean, Dedra thought she'd been dead clever and had covered her tracks, and Krennic was all over it. And yeah, the fact that he's improvised that finger on the head moment, which, you know, it is a great scene, and she acted it well as well. It's like, that's it, I'm done for. Yeah, it's great stuff.
Yeah. That brings us to the end of this week's news. But we have our deep dive into Andor Season 2 still to come, Paul. So let's fire up the graphics and head on over to the Death Star cometh.
Yeah.
And we're covering Season 2, Episode 2, Sagrona Tima, on this week's Death Star cometh. Paul, what did you think of this week's episode overall?
Yeah, it was a weird one, wasn't it? Because because of the nature of who they are, these rebels that have been antagonising Andor, they suddenly break into two factions, and you've got one lot that are camping out near the Starfighter, and another lot that are just a little bit away from it. And what they're trying to do is the one lot are trying to turn the TIE fighter towards the other lot to blow them up, to use the weaponry on the TIE fighter. But we don't really get to know who these characters are and why they're working against each other, because to begin with, it looked like they were all together. So a little bit confusing, I thought. Did you?
Yeah. Let's bring up the screen and whilst we talk. So this is kind of talking about where these characters here. It was a strange storyline from the off. I never quite understood what they were trying to get across, what angle they were trying to go with. Cassian's landed on a planet that he was supposed to land on. He's got some recognition of who these people were because he was supposed to sort of meet with them somehow. They weren't necessarily expecting a TIE fighter, didn't like him. And it kind of all sort of kicked off in a weird kind of standoff between two groups of these rebels. And I never quite understood, you know, some of them are dying off partly from the creatures on the planet. They would have them finding a foot randomly. But they kind of cut back and forth from this scene, and even when it works through to the big reveal at the end, which we'll come to, I still don't know what the payoff was, and it never really sort of came back to anything in later episodes too. It's almost like, was it trying to tell the story that building a rebellion and you can maybe get some rough and ready people who just want to fight and really aren't there for the cause? I don't know if that was what they were trying to say.
I think what it was saying is that at this point in time, the rebellion against the Empire was a bit unstable, and they hadn't got really a clear direction, and so that it was trying to sort of cement that to try and sort of find out which of these little factions were going to end up leading the rebellion, I suppose.
Yeah.
It almost gave extra strength to the Empire, because that is very sort of regimented, whereas this is so haphazard. And it's a bit like when a political party has a lot of infighting. It is like that.
Yeah. We then flip over to Coruscant, and we've got our two favourite ISB agents here, and they are kind of deep in conversation about Gorman. Dedra's very much against being involved in this project at all. Not one that she's comfortable with, I think.
Yeah. And let's give a big shout out to the introduction of the Rain Mac in Andor. Fantastic. You know. Yeah. I mean, their relationship has always been very sort of cloak and dagger, hence the coats. But yeah, Mark Mulcaster, yeah. Yeah, you're right there. Luthen probably not got quite the grip on it that everybody thought he had. Yeah, that's why you got all these fallouts between these different groups. But yeah, I mean, what happens later on with his character kind of surprised me. Kind of came from nowhere for me. But maybe on rewatching, I would see the path to that decision. But yeah, they were brilliant, weren't they? They were both brilliant. There's a couple of shows coming up where they're both going to be attending. I'd love to get a photo.
Yeah, I think, and I'm flipping to this scene particularly, there was some minor characters, let's say, from the first season who really shone in the second season. Kayla being another example of that. And it kind of showed you the depth of talent that they had in this show in terms of the actors.
Yeah. Now, I went along to Star Fury last year, and this young lady, Naylor, was there. And like you say, a very sort of minor part. I was almost sort of like when she came out on stage, it was like, so what? It's almost like an extra, if you like, almost. But she would have already filmed the scenes for season 2 by then. She would have known the significance of her role in it, and she, didn't let on a single thing. It could have been that she wasn't even in season 2. But she came of age in this one, didn't she? Certainly in later episodes. But yeah, the relationship between her and Luthen gets beautifully described later on in the series.
Yeah, and obviously in this scene they're arguing on the basis she wants to go back to Coruscant. She wants to be at her headset, finding out what's going on with everyone. She's a little bit unhappy that she's not able to hear from Cassian Andor as to what's happened with regards to TIE Fighter. So she's at this point leaving. Mon Mothma, her lovely husband, loyal husband.
Yeah, they're very twisted man, Mr. Cameron.
He never did one bad thing the whole series.
Did he not?
He was loyal to the end, despite his wife being a bad influence on the Senate. That's all I can say. Just loyal to a fault. They're organising the wedding. Things are getting strained. Back at our little crop planet, where they've built buildings right in the middle of the field. What a waste of space. No farmer would do that. It really annoys me every time I see it.
Maybe it was on purpose. We don't know. It could have been a demountable.
Anyway, the main farmer at the ranch, we'll call it.
Yeah.
He's come along and warned them that the Imperials are coming to do an audit. And there are terrorists here, our little terrorist cell. Not happy at all. Randomly, Cassian Andor drinking from a bowl of water like a dog. Very random scene. Really didn't know what's going on in Coruscant. They're eating local plants.
Yeah.
It's weird. I just didn't understand the whole thing. It just went over my head.
Well, they were eating dodgy plants, and the other lot were eating out-of-date rations and moaning about it, weren't they? So,
that's true. But we got the return of Cyril in this episode. He's still at the Weights and Measures department. It's good to see an organised government put so much effort into ensuring the purity of fuel. as you see here. And Cyril's now the boss, and he's got a new recruit, and he's given the little lowdown to new recruit. The smallest inconsistency that Cyril found was able to trace it to people stealing from the fine Imperial taxpayers of the day. And nice to see Cyril here in command a little bit, in authority, which was very different from what we've seen from his character before.
Yeah, he's just a bit of a snivelling little git, wasn't he?
It's shocking. These are snivelling gits, having a little carry-on in amongst the crop. But showing you here, once again, what good people that the Imperials are, using the tracks in the field to travel through. Like proper citizens would do. Don't stand on the crops. And we're introduced to it is, I forget his name. Now I have to look it up. It is
Kroll. Or...
Cruel, isn't it? It's Lieutenant Kroll.
Yeah.
A fine Imperial man, upstanding citizen. He's just there to meet the locals, make sure that they're happy, let them know that he's doing an audit. And came across rather lovely, didn't he, Paul?
You know my thoughts on this. I mean, I thought, well, this is definitely a bit of a slimy character, but we were kind of warned on the run up to this that there was going to be some rather thank you, Mark. There was going to be some disturbing sort of scenes relating to this character, and
he meets Bex. Bex gives him a little smile, and he's enjoying himself out in the sun, out in the field. And he gives her tells her a little sad story. You know, he's sad and lonely, and life's tough. You know, he's an Imperial out here doing an audit and checking up on things. Asks her if she's travelled, she's been anywhere nice, and invites her out for dinner. You know, just a nice, friendly man. She tells him she's married. He goes, "That's a shame." And he departs because Brasso comes along. I hate Brasso. Who hates Brasso here?
Oh, what? Brasso, top man, top bloke. Look at him. He'll sort him out.
Having exchanged some pleasantries and wished them well in the harvest, and Mr. Kroll kindly departs.
Terrible man. Terrible man.
Dear.
Yeah, it's what I liked about that exchange was it was very much like one of your primetime dramas on ITV or BBC. It was quality writing. The Star Wars element almost didn't need to be.
It's character building. Mr. Melcaster just made that comment a few comments back, but he also makes an interesting comment here. It's, how many times have you seen something like this in a World War II film or a Western?
Exactly,
when you give the characters time to breathe, if you just introduce Lieutenant Kroll and you'd gone to what happens in the next episode, it means nothing. The fact that you've kind of had this little build-up of the relationship between the characters makes it slightly more interesting.
Yeah, it reminded me a bit at the beginning of Inglourious Bastards, where you got that
what film's that?
Look it up. But it got this very intense scene and focusing around a glass of milk of all things. But it was, you know, it reminded me of that. Very tense.
Proof that they were on a big budget for the film. We ended up at this real world location where they randomly everybody walked up the hill. And it promised us singing and dancing and all that when they got to the top, and we didn't see any of that. So I was kind of disappointed.
There is a rather alarming thing about this, though, Brian.
Yeah,
a lot of them have got very wide-brimmed sun hats on, except for the ginger.
That's true. It's a very good point.
The ginger should have the biggest hat.
Should be. look after yourself in the summer heat. It's going to hit record temperatures, I believe, this week in the UK. So yeah, watch yourself when you're out in the sun.
Oh, God. Now you warn me.
Back where it's a little bit wet and muddy. We're back aboard the crash ship on a mystery planet. And the other group, they're trying to set right the TIE fighter that's landed a little bit awkward.
They're not that. Whoa. That's not what they're trying to do. They're trying to spin it around so it's facing them so they can blast at them.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, still weird goings on this weird planet. Back on Coruscant, this is where things get disturbing. Sexual violence is what you're witnessing here, and
It is very awkward.
you can see in his face he's frightened. He pretends he's in love with Dedra, but he's actually frightened of her. And she's looking at him very sternly, and she grabs him by the face. Not to be trusted, that Dedra.
No. This is as close to Nazi Nazi Star Wars as we're going to get.
Yeah. What's the he's in the it's got a phrase, a Freudian phrase, I can't remember. He's kind of trapped in this relationship where he thinks he loves her, but he doesn't really, and he's prepared to do whatever she wants. But yeah, she's definitely controlling him, and we're going to see more of that because they're getting ready to host a lovely dinner for his mother, Edie, who hasn't met Dedra before. So, talking of lovely dinners, Mon Mothma's still there in their multi-day wedding.
Yeah.
Every parent delighted they're not from Chandrilla. Tay continuing his complaining to Mon Mothma. She looks quite frightened here. That he's lost out so much money because of her rebel ways, and he's not happy. He wants equal money. He wants put right all his investments that he's lost because of her rebel meddling. And watching from afar, Luthen Rael not happy at pressure being put on his Mon Mothma. She's crucial to his plans. Interesting little scene here. And again, it lays the groundwork for what's going to happen, I think, next week's episode.
I find a lot of these costumes reminding me very much of sort of Battlestar, the original Battlestar Galactica and Buck Rogers. They were those kind of costumes. It was a bit, it's sort of early 80s.
Yeah. Interesting. Kayla, she's gone back to Coruscant. She's tuning in the radio. So things are starting to warm up a little there. And Luthen basically calls out Mon Mothma and warns her that she's going to have to do something about Tay. Or he will. And then we get Mon Mothma's lovely husband giving a grand speech. Sagrona Tima. We should have had shot glasses, Paul. And every time he said Sagrona Tima, took a shot.
We could have toasted.
We could have toasted. But he makes a grand speech. Does the family proud. The little dweeb that's getting married to the daughter. Sadly, beyond their wedding, we never really got a conclusion to any part of Mon Mothma's husband or family's story, really.
I don't know. I mean, we might save it until the end of the series, but there was one shot that was
it was just Perrin being a kind man, taking a lady who had a little bit too much drink home. As Mr. Newbold says, her husband Perrin's misunderstood. Decent bloke after all. He was a decent bloke.
What is wrong with you two?
You have to put up with a wife that's basically embarrassing you in front of the Emperor every week. You know, you had a lot to put up with that man. But all I can say to him is, Sagrona Tima, you did your family proud. people not doing themselves proud, we're still dragging on this weird story. We Cassian Andor and the other lot. Beck's, she's back on her planet thinking about Lieutenant Kroll, how she's missing him so much.
When's that nice man going to come and call again?
Yeah, when's my husband invited me out for a meal, she said lately. I could have been for a nice meal with Lieutenant Kroll. It would have been lovely. A lovely evening could have been had. But no. They're not having a lovely evening on this weird jungle planet either. They're having a bit of a standoff and a fight. Cassian, I don't even know what that shows. What a weird clip. Anyway, they play tic-tac-toe.
Oh, are we having a go?
Yeah, let's have a go. Let's go back on the big screen here. Where are we going to go? On three, Paul.
What is it? Is this like rock, paper, scissors?
Rock, paper, scissors.
Okay.
Right.
Is that what we're doing?
Right, that's what we're going to do. So I'll go 1, 2, 3. Oh, see, I win.
No, but I did go with this. There's a delay. So
there's a delay. I won. Tony Gilroy said that the daughter lives a happy upper class life. And as Mark Newell points out, rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock. Yeah, that's kind of where we were at with it. It was weird. Apparently, like that's a win in hand. Is that anyway? That shows you the mentality of these rebels. You know. Cassian, meanwhile, he beats up some random dude and escapes through the jungle. Makes it back to his advanced tie and takes off with them all shooting and then them standing there all gormless looking as if they're gormless gormans. And as he flies away, we get this little reveal that it's Yavin, the jungle planet they've been on all this time. So that's basically the foundations of the rebellion on Yavin were a bunch of idiots, is what we've learned.
Well, one thing that wasn't on there on your slides, Brian, there was some strange creature ran through and took at least one of them away.
Yeah, I couldn't get a good screenshot of that, to be perfectly honest. It's too dark framed.
No, you couldn't get one anyway because it just rushes through. But the point I'm going to make is when you watch Star Wars now, you know that there's something lurking down in that forest.
Something lurking where they all build their luxury little jungle huts. And future episodes, so I didn't understand the entire purpose of that whole angle.
No, it was almost it was almost a filler episode, wasn't it?
If you'd taken Cassian from the test facility straight back to the corn planet, it would have made no difference to anything.
No, I think it was just time for that subplot where that nice Imperial was going to take the young lady out for a nice meal somewhere. But
that's I would have preferred to see them go out for a nice meal during this episode. A little bit lovely courtmanship there. But no,
you're a bad man.
That is it for this week's The Death Star Cometh, part of Good Morning Tatooine, your weekly recap of all the Star Wars news, live streaming every Sunday at 9 p.m. in the UK, 4 p.m. in New York. Paul, we've covered the news. We've covered Andor Season 2, Episode 2. There's going to be lots happening this coming week. I'm heading down to London. I'm going to see the original cut of Star Wars as shown in the cinemas in the UK in 1977 at the British Film Institute on Thursday. So I'm very much looking forward to that. That's basically the conclusion of the Andor arc.
Yeah, I mean, that is going to be very interesting. I mean, if it is the original version that hasn't been even tinkered with in terms of the image quality or anything, it's going to be quite rough. But to see Star Wars as it was seen back in 77 and 78, that for me is an amazing opportunity. So yes, a bit jealous on that one.
Looking forward to it. We don't know what's going to be happening newsworthy in the Star Wars world this coming week, but there'll always be more news. You can keep it on fantatracks.com to learn more. Let's do some promos. Paul. If I can find the right button. Head to fantatracks.com every single day to get your Star Wars news in a single file, with coverage of films, TV, collecting, fashion, gaming, literature, music and art, with lots of interviews, event coverage, podcasts and reviews.
And of course, we've got social media. We've got all of the most popular ones that you can get: Instagram, Facebook, Threads, X, and TikTok. You might even be able to find us in other places.
We do. We have lots everywhere. You can find us, even on OnlyFans. Even on OnlyFans. You can also go to your podcatcher of choice, type in Fantatracks Radio. You'll find all our podcasts there. Coming up this week is episode 226 of Making Tracks on Tuesday. That's 226 episodes that I've not been invited onto. They've reached. And more interviews from the Festival of the Force later in the week as well.
Come on, invite him on, everybody. You know you want to.
Fantatracks TV, you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, X, and Good Morning Tatooine live streams every Sunday. We've got episodes of Jabba's Court coming out on a regular basis as well. And what will happen first? Will Fanta Arcade launch, or will Brian appear on an episode of Making Tracks? We just don't know. It's exciting. Keep tuning and you'll find the button. That's the intro button. Here we are. People think we're only joking about OnlyFans. I'm not. The Fantatracks does actually have a OnlyFans page. There's nothing on it, but OnlyFans, when it launched, was nobody knew what it was going to be. It was just going to be a little standard little social media content site. So let's secure the Fantatracks handle.
Please,
and then it evolved into what it is today. There's a blank Fantatracks OnlyFans page. Like and subscribe.
We need to take opportunity of this OnlyFans page.
We should start dropping some content. See who notices first.
Mr. Newbold's feet. There you go.
You see how platforms evolve. OnlyFans at one point was a cooking and all sorts going on there on OnlyFans. Cooking shows and everything. People forget, things change in a short period of time.
I think it's found its place in the market.
It has. It's worth $8 billion apparently, which is twice the price that Disney paid for Lucasfilm. Mr. Newbold just dropped content and nothing else. Dear. One day maybe when things get desperate.
Yeah.
Paul, any plans for yourself for this coming week?
I've got plenty of work to get on with. Any Star Wars plans? None this week, I don't think. No, just a week of work, unfortunately. Very jealous of your BFI thing. That sounds like it could be a cracking night out.
Hopefully it will be. I'm looking forward to seeing what Star Wars really was like back in the day. See what the big fuss is all about.
Yeah, but it's always difficult when you start somewhere with a middle-ish film,
Yeah, definitely.
And we look forward to hearing that.
Absolutely. So that's us for this week on Good Morning Tatooine. Thank you very much for joining us. And with that, it's a good night from me.
And it's a good night from OnlyFans. Good night.
Keep up to date with the latest Star Wars news each and every day on fantatracks.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, and Pinterest at Fantatracks. And be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and follow Fantatracks TV to be alerted to new content and to be a part of our live shows.